Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live stream poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears and on your laptops. Our guest for episode number 318 is Julia Kolchinsky. She'll be here in just a few minutes, but before we begin, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all of this because we love poetry. I know you do too, so please do click on that like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications. Leave reviews on iTunes or Spotify or Amazon Music or TuneIn, whatever you can think of. Leave a review somewhere to help spread poetry around the internet. Now, like we always do, we're going to start out with our Poets Respond poet, and it's a very familiar face this week. Prompt Lines regular, Cam McGlynn is here. Hey, Cam, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's so glad to see you, and I really love this poem, which was sort of right in your wheelhouse as far as combining
Yeah.
science and strange things with emotion, and it's just a really nice poem. How this poem come to be? What can you tell us about it?
I think of this kind of poem that I do write a lot of as my ADHD poems, because this is a picture of how my brain works, just making these sort of giant leaps in logic, moving from one subject to another and then looping back into the same subject again because I realized there were things I didn't cover earlier. So I feel like a lot of time I spend a lot of my day trying to like tamp that down so I can communicate more reasonably with people. So it's fun in poetry getting to just go full force and just letting those leaps happen and loop back around without trying to stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the poem came up because I read a Facebook comment that really made me laugh. And then I was trying to research what this person had said, and I could find nothing at all reasonable or logical with what they were saying. But it made me think a lot about like the nature of knowledge itself and what does it mean to know something or not know something.
Yeah, well, actually, I know what they're talking about. So this is the Facebook comment is, it's because they have been poking holes in the sun. Wake up, people. And they're talking about, so there's this like really fringe, because I like weird things, you know, like I listen to Art Bell forever. So I keep a little eye on what's going on in the strangeness world. And what this theory is that the satellite Three-Eye Atlas, or not satellite, I let it slip. No, it's a comet. Three-Eye Atlas is actually an alien spacecraft. And when it got close to the sun, it's putting holes in the corona. And that's what caused the solar flares and the aurora borealis. And so I think that's who the they is,
Wow.
is aliens.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if it was aliens or scientists or the government. I couldn't figure it out in my brief foray down that rabbit hole. So now I know.
Yeah, you'd think it might be space lasers. I mean, it's always a good guess. But no,
Yeah,
this one is aliens. So anyway, do you want to go ahead and read this poem?
Yes, I will. It's because they've been poking holes in the sun. Wake up, people. Facebook comment on an article about the aurora borealis. My favorite boss liked to remind me that we don't know what we don't know. Sure, there are some things that we know we don't know. The best treatment for pancreatic cancer, how long the next government shutdown will last, or why our lunchroom sells moldy cakes. Those are all knowable unknowns. The kind of subjects you can ask questions about, the kind of questions meaty enough to chew on for decades. Have you ever realized how easy it is to not know something? If I asked if you knew your mother's birthday, you would answer yes after an uncomfortable pause. If I asked if you knew my mother's birthday, you would quickly answer no. We can realize what is unknown to us faster than realize what is known. Your mind doesn't have to shuffle through the library catalog of your memory to summon up a non-answer. But the unknowable unknowns are invisible, noiseless, and strange. A gap in your teeth that even your tongue can't detect. A language made of tones you can't hear. A hole filled with other holes. In 1908, Christian Birkeland theorized that auroras were created when the sun's ejection electrons disturbed the Earth's magnetic field. No one believed him about the sun. Surely it was gas or dust or the Earth's own unruly shrugs that caused those flickering colors. When he invented an electromagnetic cannon, it exploded in flames in front of his investors. When he used that cannon to create the first nitrogen fertilizer, his partner took credit and iced him out of the company. For all the things Birkeland knew, he couldn't have known that one day, long after his aurora theories were proven correct, We would debate not the fact of the sun causing auroras, but the fact of who was causing the sun to cause the auroras. I still don't know who they are, the ones poking holes in the sun. But I do know that my dental hygienist believes that the reason it didn't rain this summer was because of the military satellites controlled at the army base next door. It's unclear if she thinks the mysterious they were doing so intentionally with their chemtrails and space lasers, or accidentally with their overpaid incompetence. I didn't tell her I worked there and was neither overpaid nor trained in weather control. I didn't tell her there really was a building called the Cloud Study Chamber, a rusty sphere where they used to study, not clouds, but biological warfare in the 40s. I didn't tell her I researched cancer, not weather. She'll be sure we already had a cure, but we're keeping it from her. No, I didn't tell her, not because of fear, but because she had her fingers in my mouth. Plato thought that learning was just remembering what our souls already knew but forgot. What don't I know? And when will I know I don't know it?
Yeah, that's great. So funny and fascinating and informative all at once. Excellent by Chelsea McGlynn. Thanks so much, Chelsea, for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, really wonderful having you on. And I hope you come back for the prompt lines later if you're still around.
Yeah, I failed on my on my poem this week. I tried experimental and went too experimental and didn't work out, but I'll be listening along.
Okay, well, great. Well, this is very close to an essay, so
Yes,
you know,
I think so too.
it might count. I mean, it's as far as close as mine counts anyway. So we'll see.
I'll read it again.
Okay, well, very cool. Well, thanks. Good to see you, Chelsea.
Bye.
Yeah, and that was Cam McGlynn with "It's Because They Have Been Poking Holes in the Sun. Wake Up, People," which is a title from a Facebook comment. Always nice to have a more lighthearted, but there's so much going on around that with social media and just the way we approach the world and what its truth. So really fascinating insight at the same time from Cam McGlynn. Your Poets Respond poem of the week. Now, if you'd like to share a poem yourself, all you have to do is submit it to Rattle by midnight. And Friday night, we publish a poem like that about current events, something like the Aurora Borealis and the space lasers or whatever we're talking about. We publish that on Sunday. So all you have to do is submit your poems by midnight Friday. Go to rattle.com, open content. You'll see Poets Respond. You can submit your poems there. And it's always really important and fun to keep poetry relevant and part of the dialogue. Also, you get those poems by email. So go to the bottom of rattle.com, sign up for a daily poem by email, and you'll get poems like that in your inbox every morning at like 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So do that. Now, we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Julia Kolchinsky. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, today's guest is Julia Kolchinsky. Julia first appeared in episode number 190, so tune back and look at that one. That was for her last book, 40 Weeks. She's here now for her new book, Parallax. Julia Kolchinsky came to the United States as a Jewish refugee when she was 6 years old from Dnipro, Ukraine. She's the author of 4 collections of poetry, most recently Parallax, which just came out this year and was selected as a finalist for the Miller Williams Prize by Patricia Smith. Her other books include 40 Weeks, Don't Touch the Bones, and The Many Names for Mother. She's assistant professor of English and creative writing at Denison University and lives in Columbus, Ohio with her family. And here she is, Julia Kolchinsky. Hey, Julia, how you doing? Great to have you back.
Hello, I'm very excited to be coming from a different state, whole different place in
I know,
life.
yeah, moving around a lot. And I actually know Denison University. A friend of mine from Rochester went there. And so I went to visit a number of times in my college years. It's a beautiful campus.
Really? Well, see, we got to get you back. It is beautiful, and I don't know, just really loving it here.
Yeah. Well, let's start out just jumping right into this new book, Parallax. Do you want to read the first poem you have queued up?
Sure. Um, so the book is, very much about bearing witness to the war in Ukraine, my birthplace, while parenting a neurodiverse kiddo and grappling with kind of the violence happening at a distance in my birthplace, but also the violence that, my son kind of is obsessed with. Um, and I think this poem kind of encapsulates that. I do not mention the war to my 6-year-old son, but somehow his body knows. My face in his hands before bed, he asks, if I cut you in half, would you be even? I am silent, expecting mothers in Mariupol are cut by invisible hands, children cut off from water, because you have 2 eyes, plus 2 ears, plus 2 cheeks, plus so much hair, plus your mouth can have 2 halves. So you'd be even, right? He wants simple math, breath that outlasts violence. U divided by 2 equals 2 even U's. He isn't asking anymore. He is making me monument. You would still be if I cut you in half. Small hands demand a splitting. If you cut me in half, I tell him, I'd be dead.
Yeah, it's a powerful poem to start out. That was, I do not mention the war to my 6-year-old son, but somehow his body knows. And this book, Julia, is called Parallax, which is another. I guess we have a lot of science today. It's another scientific term. So how did you come upon that as the title? I think the last poem we're going to read tonight has that word in it.
Yes,
but how
it's
did you
the
decide?
sort of title poem that I actually wrote after titling the book.
Oh,
Um,
really?
which is, yeah, it's an interesting, process. So I was writing all of these, why write another poem about the moon poems? And, for the poet listeners in the room, is there any one of us who hasn't written about the moon? No, I don't think you're a writer if you haven't written about the moon. It's something we're all kind of obsessed with. And so instead of, saying, oh, I've written too many, I go the opposite extreme. I'm like, well, let's just keep the obsession going. And so I kept writing these poems. And, parallax, as I defined in the title page, technically, right, is the apparent shift caused by viewing from 2 different vantage points. And that's actually how we first learned to measure the distance of celestial bodies, was if I look at the moon over here from Ohio and you look at the moon over there from the West Coast, the shift in the sky is going to tell us how far away it is from Earth. Math that I don't know and physics that I don't know, but I can understand. Um, and so that felt like such an apt metaphor for viewing the war at, my vantage point, both geographically distant, but also kind of generationally distant, having immigrated when I was a child. And then also to view my son's autism and the way he views the world, which is completely different. So there's always this kind of triangulation going on in terms of gazing, and then trying to understand. And I guess for me, parallax became almost a way of talking about empathy and asking for empathy, calling for empathy, for recognizing how many vantage points show us more rather than less.
Yeah, well, it's poetry, being a little empathy machine. It's all about that parallax understanding of the world, where we get to see from different perspectives that the radically different ways we can experience our own realities, which is somehow both shared, but at the same time very different based on your perspective and background, and how you're viewing and how you're interpreting things, and the science of that's really clear that we see very different things, even if we're looking at the same thing. How did you think about that point of view as you were writing the poems? Was there a sense that like this poem was from one perspective that I'm, one vantage point, and the other poem is from a different vantage point? Were you thinking about that, looking in from different ways as you wrote the poems?
I think that's such a great question. So, in this book, I don't really take on persona very much. So I'm always writing these poems from a lyric eye that's quite close to my own, but I think I'm trying to look at and look with. I guess rather than look at, it's look with the way that my son might see, or the way that someone much closer to the violence of war might see, the way my grandmother and mother see things. So rather than kind of taking on their point of view, I'm trying to gaze with them, but remain grounded in my own lyric eye in this collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's hear another poem. And the next one up is one of those or why write another poem about the moon poems. I think there were 4 maybe in the book, if I counted right.
Yes, and there are many more than that, but poems need to be cut. We can't have all of them as much as we want them all in the book. So it's really fitting to read this poem today because November 14th was my family's immigrant anniversary, refugee anniversary, whatever you want to call it. And so it's been 32 years. And it's always a very kind of important day for me. And so this is a poem about a doll that I brought with me and, what my son ended up doing to her. Why write another poem about the moon? When my son is surrounded by the severed heads of Barbies I spent a decade loving, but haven't touched for 3 of his lifetime. How long after he ran his fingertips so gently across their hair did he tear the plastic skulls from their torso trunks and leave them naked like birch branches from my childhood, stripped of bark by summer thunderstorm and strewn so far, who knows what tree they once belonged to. The doll I carried across the Atlantic is hit the worst, her pelvis cracked in half and head missing altogether. Its mess of dirty curl just like his own, and eyes too much like mine. Moons, he says, they look like hairy moons. My son, their son, and I am terrified for every woman, every moon he longs to touch.
Yeah, and that was Why Write Another Poem About the Moon? One of the several poems of that title in Parallax by Julia Kolchinsky. So, Julia, in writing about this, combining the war with domestic life and parenthood, there are so many stark things. There's so many stark contrasts. Was that something that you were intentionally working on, juggling and focusing on, or is it more like the poems were what was coming up in your consciousness as you were just happened to be writing?
Yeah, the poems were just coming up. I'm not reading the poem and here watching Masha and Medved as Russia invades Ukraine. But it is a poem where I'm just listening to CNN on the first day that the missiles, are going. But there's an ice storm in Arkansas, so my children are home from school. And so they're watching Masha and I'm listening to the news. And the poems juggle these two things because, like you said, that is what I was juggling. And I couldn't help but write about both. The same way I couldn't help writing about, my domestic space and motherhood. I couldn't help writing about what was going on, what was tugging at me in my birthplace.
Mm-hmm.
And poetry is such an amazing, vessel for that because it allows us to make these associative leaps, as Cam was talking about, right? Like you can leap from one thing to another without having to explain, but letting the metaphors and the images and the music do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the most profound, or some of the most profound moments in the book, I'd say, or when, like in the last poem we wrote, when the violence appears in the actions of your son, which is sort of like, both showing the way, the violence just ingrained as part of culture, as part of boyhood too. I mean, taking around the severed heads of Barbies is something that a lot of boys do, destroying.
Yeah, and girls.
Yeah.
I used to tear their heads off too. Like it's,
Mm-hmm.
we see this from an adult sensibility and read a much more grave violence into it. But kids, watching my kids, and I'm sure you've had experienced this, they're just constantly trying to rehearse death in order to like deal with it. And so maybe when we're adults, we're also doing that in our own way by writing about it obsessively.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, really well said. Was it difficult, to come to terms with that? Like it is when those kind of moments happen, it is sort of shocking as a parent. I know personally firsthand too. It reminded me actually, it's a little bit different, but I used to be very gung ho about language. And I always used to say like, oh, there's no such thing as swear words. Like, whatever, we talk and that's a word. And if you want to say, and then the first time I heard my daughter, who's 15 now, but she was like 3, and she was like, drop something. She's like, oh shit. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good in a 3-year-old's mouth. Maybe I should have rethought that. Was there like a transition into coming to grips with that kind of violence and sort of, I don't know, contaminating maybe the childish spirit? Or, I mean, how was that transition like for you?
I mean, I see it with my daughter more so, but I feel like with my son, it was never not. I mean, I don't love the word contaminated. I just feel like his childhood is very different and his way of looking at the world is very different. And it was always there.
Mm.
Like he, used to draw pictures of dead animals and preschool teachers would be like, "What is this?" But this is just something that he's fascinated by, and I've written a number of essays about it, where and I have this in the book too, where he's just afraid of me dying,
Mm.
and his that fear of me dying, I think, manifests in trying to gain a mastery over the death of something else, not
Mm.
not to take us back to Freud, but often I do go back to Freud. And in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, sorry, the dog is also playing and mastering things. In Beyond the Pleasure Principle, Freud talks about, mastering the absence of the mother, the Fort Da game, where the child throws the toy away and gains less pleasure out of getting it back than he does out of the throwing. And it's about gaining mastery over the absence of the mother, but also over the fact that the father was on the front fighting World War One. And it's, in psychoanalytic terms, it's when Freud says we're not actually driven by pleasure. We're not driven by the pleasure principle. We're driven by the death drive, right? This innate human desire to return to an inanimate state and a return to the womb. And I'm not saying you got to drink all the Freud Kool-Aid, but I do find that quite compelling. Whether we kind of admit it or not, there is this fascination and reaching towards death that's
Mhm.
just a part of us.
Yeah, well, that's really fascinating. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms exactly. And it is, to bring another psychologist in, Lacan. Don't worry about the dog because we can't hear actually. Like Zoom does a great job muting loud,
that's
short
great.
noises. Yeah. But with Lacan, his like one of his main contributions to the way we think about things is that sense of not knowing, that big stage where you don't know the difference between you and your mother. And it's like that's the first division of self and other. And there's a fascinating way, like everything sort of fragments from that first break, that like the whole world is this one, almost like Zen Buddhist, everything interconnected. And then you realize, wait a minute, this mother is not me. I'm different. And then, and it's such a fundamental thing at the deep bottom of our psychology that everything we understand about the world after that fact, that first fact, is just a further division of those two units of self and other, and then further dividing into like table and chair and breath and sky and all the internal things. And really what poetry is doing is increasing the resolution on those divisions, so we get more pixels per inch with the world in our experience by cleaving them apart with language. But it is really fascinating to hear it that way. Was there a moment or a time where that death entered the picture, for him? Was there anything that like it appeared? I'm just kind of curious about that stage.
I honestly don't know. I mean, the cat died, right? There were things, but I'm not sure if you can pinpoint the moment. I mean, if we think about almost every Disney film, everything, every story, fairy tale, they're all centered around like the loss of a mother, the loss of a
Hmm.
father. My daughter said to me the other day, which I couldn't even believe, she said, Mama, I really, really want to be a mama. She's 6. And I was like, that's great. She's like, but some people can't be mamas. And that's very sad. Like they
Hmm.
can't have their own children. Like Ellie in Up. Uh,
Wow.
And 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 I mean, I feel like that is such a nuanced thing to have noticed
Hmm.
in that film and held on to it. I don't even remember the last time we watched Up.
Hmm.
But all that is to say that I think children are so intuitive, and that it's hard to find this kind of thing, and that
Hmm.
it's just part of, the zeitgeist. It's part of every fairy tale,
Hmm.
song, every song that I sing,
Yeah. Yeah.
law.
Hmm. It is fascinating. That's something I've thought about with fairy tales. It's almost always the death or absence of the mother, and there's this idea that it's sort of an old patriarchal view of the world that's the mother. But I think it's the opposite. It's that the mother is so valuable. It's the biggest loss a child could have. So of course, in your archetypal
Yes.
stories about loss, it ends up being the mother that's missing, and everybody's the orphan with the father or the wicked stepmother and all those kind of things, because that's the worst loss you could imagine as a kid. So it's just a really, really interesting insight into this that you've got running throughout this book. Well, let's keep poems going. Do you want to read the next poem you have up?
Sure. And I think it's so fascinating to read this poem in light of what you said about the fracturing, right, of self, because that's what I was trying to do formally, as you said, with this poem, was to do the counterpunctal form where it can be read in multiple ways. So I'll just read it horizontally, but then I'm going to read just the narrow column, the really short one, vertically, just so you can hear what I was trying to
Hmm.
do. Summer camp can't fit the shape of flame. We cannot accommodate the needs of your child means find another place for him to be himself and scorch like in the story the cat's house burns down and no animal will let her in because there is no room for her for him and the fire won't die and I'm sorry. I wish we could do more means there is nothing they will do and sobs and can't stop because I just want to go back to see my friends means he thought for the briefest moment he had friends and the lake held his body tight enough, and the sun was only reflection, not blister, and the ticks didn't bite his ankles, and even if they did, it's okay, he says, and promises to try harder and be better and keep all that him inside. And I know what you are going through means they have no idea. And it's not your fault, I keep repeating as he sobs and asks to be rocked like a baby with all the heft of grown boy and limbs flail like young branches until he laughs and forgets tomorrow and summer is long and hot and lingers everywhere his body touches and accommodate means to make fit but he doesn't fit the shape they've named child and needs them to change their shape and we cannot means did they even try.
Yeah, I mean that's such a powerful poem. Summer camp can't fit the shape of flame, and
Yeah.
there's the contrapuntal poem too.
Yeah, so then I'll just read the short one.
Okay.
In the story, there is no room inside. Sobs and sobs. Stop. Try harder. Keep all that him, baby, boy, and limbs everywhere. To change means try.
Yeah, and so that concise, lyric, sparse poem hidden inside that really energetic body of a poem. Summer can't camp can't fit the shape of flame. How did you like figure out and bring this poem to life? It's such an interesting poem in a lot of ways.
I was just dealing with the experience of my son being kicked out of summer camp, and
Hmm.
I didn't know what to do. Poems for me are a way to figure out what I feel and what I think about something, and a way to place all of that uncontainable emotion down.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's what I did. And it felt kind of vast and large, and I wrote many drafts and it wasn't working. And when I figured out that formal choice to, hide, I like the word hide, right? To kind of enclose another poem within it. It helped me because it allowed me to focus more on the lyricism and on the cutting,
Hmm.
rather than on the narrative, because the narrative was pretty minimal, right? It's just the actual quotes from the camp. And so I wanted to kind of make this poem be both addressed to, those that can't accommodate, right? Addressed in terms of my frustration, but then that shorter lyric is almost an address to me, to my son, to keep trying, to keep going, right? Rather than anger, it's
Hmm.
one of resilience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's such an important thing to be writing about. The how to navigate as a parent with a neurodiverse child. Is that something that you're conscious of and wanted to do? Is spread the experience? Because it is like you go to the park and people think that you're a bad parent because your child is acting out or something, and you can't stop and explain to everybody what the situation is, and you try to like navigate. It's just such a hard thing to navigate. I mean, from personal experience too, and it's a hard thing that people really, unless you've experienced that, it's really impossible to know what it's like to
Mhm.
be in that position. So it's spreading the word on that, and having people, have that empathy and stepping into your perspective. Talking about Parallax again, is that something that you wanted to accomplish with this book?
I mean, I don't think I knew that's what I wanted, but when the poems started coming together, I definitely did. And
Hmm.
I think it's also, I mean, in large ways, part of what turned me towards now writing nonfiction and writing essays, because I almost wanted kind of, I wanted to let myself lean into the narrative and to share the stories and to let myself have more breadth and room to tell them in order to connect with others, right? I love how poetry is far reaching and I want it to reach even more. Um, but sometimes prose reaches more audiences because they're afraid of poetry, even though
Hmm.
once they experience it, I'm sure they would, change their sensibilities. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's definitely something I wanted. I think for me, I'm never kind of concerned about looking like the bad parent. I'm more like when I'm on the playground with my two children, this was the case, even when my daughter was 2 or 3. And my daughter's 2 or 3 climbing something ridiculous, and I'm over on the other side of the park watching my son. Um, and so that's what I would explain actually, is that so I'm
Hmm.
not a helicopter parent. I just I need to monitor.
Hmm.
Because the big misunderstanding is that, and the verbiage I hate, like, oh, he doesn't even seem autistic. And that's it's such a problematic and gutting and terrible phrasing, right? Because one, it names autism as this bad thing that he shouldn't be. And two, that oh, good, passing is what he should be doing.
Hmm.
And it completely misunderstands that he's just like every other kid until he isn't.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I really wanted these poems to kind of show the complexity um, of, both being that parent, but also of the children that parents might be misunderstanding.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, really well said. And I think talking about the difference between poetry and nonfiction. I think nonfiction reaches more people, and poetry reaches deeper the ones that it does reach. And so it's great to
Oh,
be
you're
doing both, I
absolutely
think.
right. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's hear another poem.
Um, So we're coming up on the holiday season, so I felt like I had to read some holiday-y poems. This is "The Past Doesn't Rise Like Smoke," and you know, Hanukkah's coming up, so here we are. The past doesn't rise like smoke. I don't envy even a second of your life, my mother says. Not a single second. Babushka agrees, pities me, the two unmanageable kids, the disabled, now ex-husband. It's just so hard for you, she says, recalling how her face burned when she was left on the top bunk of the train evacuating her family from Kiev. The city not yet surrounded, but certain to fall. War more than memory, war the way she names her life, missing without a trace. Her father stayed back, died, and after him she named her daughter Light. He has to lie at Babin Yar. Where else? She asks, watching the third night candles smoke. I do not say Black Earth is made of all our dead. I do not say I'm tired of counting them. I say I will keep trying to find his name. I say our people are made of miracle and half believe it when I ask my father about his dead. He doesn't know their names, just that they never left Odessa. The Shoichet neighbor survived. He recalls severed chicken heads the godly way and lit Hanukkah candles in their courtyard. He remembers smoke rising against December, gray on black, until there was no trace of flame. But the past doesn't rise like smoke. There is nowhere for it to go missing. The past is every fried potato and charred wick. My son's nails singed, singing over the candles, the wrong words of a Hebrew blessing we were never taught. The past rises like swifts, perhaps, who stay aerial for months, digging for earth in the clouds, abandoning the sky only to make more birds who will rise and rise in swarms from narrow chimneys, who will refuse to smoke, who will return only once having left their names carved in unsuspecting air.
Yeah, and that was The Past Doesn't Rise Like Smoke by Julia Kolchinsky from her new book, Parallax. And so many of these poems, Julia, have, just your work generally, have that really strong, unrelenting kind of rhythm that it feels like they're just pouring out like a waterfall from you. Is that the writing process? Does that happen like once you sort of catch the flood of a poem? Does it come out with that kind of cadence and that much energy? Or is it something that you craft? Like how much does that relate to your writing process?
That's such a great question. I think I used to craft it. And I think now I love the metaphor of a waterfall because I do feel like at this point, the poems do kind of gush out of me. And then in revision, I listen where the music falters. So I revise always towards music. I feel like now, after, gosh, 20 years of writing, um, I pretty much know the arc, the lyric arc, the narrative arc as I'm writing. It's always a process of discovery. I never know where it's going to end, but I can track that kind of lyric narrative arc. And I'm always writing towards when I'm surprised. And then once I'm surprised, I know that I've got the poem. So I'm never revising towards that anymore. I always revise towards music. And I think for me, that comes from, growing up on the Russian language poets and memorizing poems from a very young age. From like age 2, I memorize. And so I just hear poems in my head. People are always, why do you memorize your poems? And I'm like, I don't try to memorize my poems. I memorize them from reading them so many times and from reading them in revision. It's like I can hear, the sonic cadences and the rhythms. Um, and I want my poems to carry me away. So I'm delighted to hear that is, evident when you hear them, this kind of carrying away rhythm.
Yeah, well, it definitely is. Can you tell us more about that? I don't think we talked about that last time you were on. So, from an early age, you were reading a lot of Russian language poets. Why is that, and what did you take from that? It makes me think of the fact I was just thinking about because Kai Carlson Wee was the guest last week, and his
Yeah,
father is a pastor, and there's so many poets who grew up in church, and having those cadences and rhythms every Sunday are what lead
yeah,
you to love language. Is that sort
yeah.
of similar for you?
Yeah, it's an orator. I mean, it's right poetry. I always say if it can't work off the page, it doesn't work for me. I need it to be recited and sung. Um, and Anna Akhmatova, when she would read, she kind of bellows, right? Um, my one of my favorite poems is her poem called The Last Toast. And it's, Я пью за разоренный дом, за злую жизнь мою. And I drink to our ruined home, to this cruel life of mine, to the two of us left lonely and alone, and to you I drink my wine. And I mean, it's like the music just enters you. And in kind of, Russian language culture and now in Ukrainian language culture, memorization and growing up reciting poetry is a natural part of every household, So I was told by my parents, you need to recite and memorize poems. And so when I came to the United States, it was about kind of finding my way into that music, but in another language, in my, adopted mother tongue, which is really my native language. Like I can't write poetry in Russian. I've tried. I can translate from Russian into English in particular, but I can't compose in it. I don't have enough of a lexicon and I don't have the flexibility that I have in English. In
Mm-hmm.
Russian, I've kind of stayed at an elementary school level. Um, so I can write really great elementary school poems, but I can't really compose beyond that.
Do you find there a difference besides for the oral tradition that sort of it leans on more in Russian poetry versus sort of Western poetry? One of the things that I think of that difference, for example, between like American poetry and like
Mhm.
European poetry, is it feels like American poetry is so rooted in like presence and like thinginess and like I'm just very. I mean, obviously, there's billions of
Like
poets.
the
Everybody does it
tangible, the
differently,
literal, you
the,
mean?
the, the tangible and the fixed in time kind of, and there's
Mm.
sort of a reaching for timelessness maybe more and I wonder things like that, like what kind of differences do you see in Russian language poetry that you don't see, and I assume you incorporate your favorite aspects into your own in English.
I mean, I really think the the ability, I mean, and I think this is true of a lot of the Romance languages, the ability to rhyme, to create kind of strict rhyme in Russian, does not sound forced because there are eight different cases. And so every word can be conjugated. And so you're not forcing a particular word in order to make something rhyme. Whereas in English, rhyme can feel quite stifling because there's a very fixed number of words that are going to rhyme exactly. So I think again, for me, it goes back to music. I don't know if there's, like a timelessness aspect. I don't think so. I think that there's such a range in Russian language poetry and I haven't read much contemporary Russian language poetry. I'm more talking about kind of the Silver Age poets, like from the 1920s to the 1960s is kind of
Mhm.
my, time period of when I'm reading a lot. But the kind of subject matter and breadth is very vast. I think all poetry has some kind of obsession with mythos and the mythic and mythology, whether that's Greek mythology or, fairy tales. And Russian language poetry definitely has that kind of mythos obsession.
Mhm. Yeah, well, very interesting. Let's hear another poem, Julia.
All right, so this will be the transition poem. I always tell my students that my poems are smarter than me, and I really believe this. Like I think you know something on the page before you know it in life. Um, and so this poem is called Omen, and I feel like in a lot of ways it kind of foreshadows, I don't know, the end of my marriage and the next book that I'm working on. Omen. We heard it in the wall first, the morning scurrying behind our headboard. Rats, we thought, and blamed the neighbors. A few sharp fists and all would quiet. How wings can sound like feet, bird like what it preys on. Let me out, no different from let me in. No telling how its iridescent neck like oil spill ended up perched on our bathroom door. Raven, wren, starling, perhaps a common grackle. A bird in the house means message at best, means death within these walls, means there are still walls and a house to hold them. A dead bird or white bird is worse. My son called ours house bird, begged, please don't leave. It didn't listen. Black wings to the fridge, then out the back into sunlight. A bird in the house means house bird, means my son will keep looking every time he goes outside. Maybe it'll find its worm, he says, and they can be friends. How love can sound like what it devours. Bird, like the boy it preys on. Bird, the closest prayer gets to God. Bird in the house means death. Bird in the wall means broken. A bird means please don't leave.
And that was Omen by Julia Kolchinsky from her new book, Parallax, foreshadowing the next book, I hear. And, that's the thing that you just hit on. It was what the thing that makes me care about poetry in the first place, especially writing my own poetry, is just that when you hit something that you didn't realize you knew or didn't understand, and that magic of meaning being created and understanding emerging out of the process of just like pushing around language. It's sort of, there's almost this like both spiritual and also kind of like, I don't know, magical, like in the parlor trick way almost of like how did that just happen? I don't know. Do you remember the first time you had that experience? For me, there's one clear poem where I was just like, oh, wow, that's what I thought about that. I didn't know, and that was what made me want to keep writing. Did you have an experience like that yourself?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I'm trying to think if there was like a poem. I feel like it was like the first poem I ever got published.
Hmm.
Um, and I was reading a lot of Pablo Neruda's The Book of Questions, which I don't know if you've ever read, but it's so delightful and fascinating. And there are all these questions and couplets without answers. And I think for me, it showed me that poetry is not an answer. Poetry is a question. That was the first time when I was reading Neruda. I was like, wow, I'm not looking for answers. I'm looking for more interesting ways of asking questions. Um, and so I wrote this poem that was talking about sex and headlights. And now I can't remember the title of it. But that was the first time. And it had a lot of questions in it. And I couldn't, I was just so surprised by it.
Hmm. Yeah, I just love that experience. It's still just mythological. I don't know. It's one of the few things in life where you can't really put your finger on how or why it works. I just love thinking about all the possible reasons for it. Well, I should say at this point, if anybody has any questions for Julia, please leave them in the chat window on YouTube, especially. I'll keep an eye on Facebook as well. Also, if you haven't please do click the like button. It really helps if you click like. If you do that, more people will see this later, and then more poetry will be spread everywhere, and we'll all learn in that deep, important way. So spread poetry by clicking like. But yeah, let's hear another poem, Julia, and you're going to share a newer poem next.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Um, and maybe for time, we'll just do let's do the one newer poem, I
Okay,
think.
yeah.
Um, So I was reading Melissa Phoebos's Girlhood, which is a fantastic collection of essays. And that is where she talked about skin hunger as this actual epidemic. And I got really fascinated and started reading all about skin hunger. And so it's when your skin is hungry for touch. And this is how this poem emerged. Skin hunger. Those first few newborn weeks, I wanted nothing but the milk soft of my children, my flesh famished from theirs being inside where our skins couldn't touch. The body is made to fit another's. Years apart, each child sunk into my chest as though returning home. And when they grew to sleep in their own beds instead of bare against my breasts, their father rested heavy there, his skin more wound than balm. But I admit I liked the ache, or reveled in the strength it took to bear it. The body is made to fit another's. Organs shift and muscles accommodate. Even the bone bows. My ring finger still ghosts the dented bind of wedding band. For months after we stopped touching, I starved for larger hands, the weight of a body I didn't make. My children hung and pulled and hugged and held. They tugged and kissed me and refused their beds now that mine was empty. They hungered for my body as though their wet raspberry blown loud and slobber young into my arms and belly, even calves, could take the place of their father's mouth. It's been 9 months, a full human gestation, and for once I wanted nothing but my skin alone with its own skin, a body made to fit another's, learning how to fit back into herself.
Yeah, another great poem. That was a new poem, Skin Hunger, by Julia Kolchinsky. And so I think we see maybe the direction your work's going now. But what can you tell us? Do you have, I know there's such lead time in books. How far into a new manuscript are you? And what can you tell us about what's coming up next?
So I have a working title. And I have a lot, too many poems, but I don't have the arc yet. And I've got, my collection coming out with Luisa Muradyan, When the World Stopped Touching, early in 2027. So I've got time because I want to give that collection time to breathe in the wild before the next one. But the working title is The Heart Refuses to Die, which comes from a poem that I wrote in conversation with Bridget Pagan Kelly's poem Song, where the poem ends with, the song was sweet, it was sweet, the heart dies of such sweetness, right? So this collection, The Heart Refuses to Die of sweetness or otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite poems, and looking forward to that collection coming up. It is powerful. So we can look forward to that. Let's see. Well, we have time. Let's do another poem now. You want to skip the other new poem and move?
Yeah,
ahead
let's skip the other new
book?
poem. Let's go back and do, the one from the book. So the thing to note about this poem is I don't know, the audience is vast, but I don't know who else grew up watching Free Willy. And I did. And I would rent Free Willy from Tower Records for 99 cents, like every Friday on repeat to watch it. And Kieko is the name of the whale in Free Willy. And this poem is all about, my first cassette tape that I brought from Ukraine. And it's just about both the immigrant experience, but also raising my kids and language and the power of language. Listening to Michael Jackson in a closet and on the kitchen floor and as a child and in our first apartment, several stops from DC, and on the way to the White House, and in a bedroom of 7 refugees, and as a daughter who brought American music from Ukraine back to America, and as a mother, windows down, blaring Billie Jean through Ringgold Street in South Philadelphia, and in the bath, drowning deflated rubber ducks, and when the bubbles have left cloudy water, and my son demands, Alexa, play Thriller, and Alexa, volume 10, and Alexa, play it again, louder, and play in English, Alexa, and does he really turn into a Volk, meaning wolf, And mama, be a zombie. And what's zombie in Russian? And mama, play zombie tag. And mama, танцуй, dance. And живи, live and live. And there's too much I cannot translate. But my son can recognize Michael's voice anywhere. And ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3. And that's the Jackson 5. My American-born ex-husband corrects. And won't you please let me back in your heart? And I grew up with Michael's voice pushing the captive orca whale back over a stone barricade. And he pushed me somewhere too. So even as kids teased me for loving Free Willy and sour cream and Michael and called me buffalo legs and smells of garlic and voted me most likely to be uncovered as an alien and asked if I was born to like red and hammers and how we smuggled our gold and how we hid our horns and how we survived. And I pressed play and play and play and play on the cassette tape until it unspooled. And it don't matter. And Keiko never could have cleared that height without carry me like you are my brother, love me like a mother, and will you be there? And my son, hear my song unspooling too. Your body can music and robot can moonwalk and break free of any man-made or imagined walls. And listen to your feet, my love. They sing across so many languages.
Yeah, that was listening to Michael Jackson in a Closet by Julia Kolchinsky. Always a real treat to get a poet singing on the Rattlecast. Thanks for doing that. So me and Katie saw you at the AWP giving a reading with Luisa, who you mentioned too.
Yeah.
And it was so clear that both of you really, but you are such a performer of poetry where it's like, most poetry readings, to be frank, are kind of dull,
Mm-hmm.
and, but the words come through and everybody's enjoying it and hearing it, and saying so in the comments through the way you read the poems. So I did want to ask you what your thoughts are about performing poems, and is there any advice you can give to make us all read our poems better?
I'll share a story. So, two stories. One, I heard Taimba just read, and when Taimba reads, he also sings, and I was floored. I loved it. And he received a lot of criticism from some of my contemporaries for being too performative, quote unquote. And when I read my poems, a very prominent Russian language poet at the time came up to me afterwards and said, I have some advice for you. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. But your words are so powerful. We could focus on them more if you were less performative in your reading. And I really hate that comment and the comment about Taimba just being too performative. It's the idea that poetry should be flat and not off the page. And it's not performative because the idea of performative has this notion of artifice and of, I don't know, embellishing, but it is a performance. And so when I read my poems, I am feeling them through my body. I am reciting them with my body, with my voice. Voice is for connecting, for performing. So I will just say to everyone, don't let anyone make you smaller. Embrace your bigness. Be big. Take up space. I think we're so constantly as poets, right, told to take up less space. At poetry readings, we're always like, okay, two more, the 2-poem warning, because we're apologizing for being there and taking up space. Even I'm like, oh, I see the time. Let's just cut back, right? Let's do less. We all do it. But so this is me saying, do more, be more, take up that space, read your work the way you want to hear it, right? The way you imagine it sounding inside of you. Let it come out that way.
Yeah, I think so much is just owning the poems in the moment and having the poems do what you wanted them to do without being timid or afraid about it. And just there is so much like hesitancy about saying you're a poet, being a poet, sharing poems. It's almost like we act like we're embarrassed to be reading so often. And I think this comes across. And I think that's really great advice for that reason, especially. Let's see. So there's a few. Let's do a couple comments or questions from the crowd here. And Dick Westheimer is here. I know you know Dick. He says,
"Hi, Dick."
he says, Julia is such a good poetry citizen. It'd be great to hear her talk more about that. So what can you say about what it means to be a poetry citizen, maybe, and how you approach that?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, poetry is all about community. And so it's all about creating community and giving back to community. And Tim, you know nothing about that. Look at no community that you've created, you know? So it makes poetry feel so much more alive when we are connected with those doing this work. Um, and so I think that's what it means for me. That's what running online poetry series means. That's what not only kind of reading your work in a literary journal, but reading all the work published in that literary journal and then sharing the work by other poets means. That's what it means to organize events and bring people together. You know, like that's a big part of why I love teaching contemporary poetry is that I change what I teach my students every semester based on the poets that I'm inviting into the classroom. I teach their entire collection because I want students to see that poetry is alive and that they actually get to connect with these, you know, contemporary poets. And that in the classroom, they are building community with one another. That's what the workshop is, right? Giving each other constructive criticism is also this way of building community. So it's all about community, other poets, and also just the community between yourself and the reader. Like I'm always so grateful to every single listener, every single reader, and being in that, you know, shared space of communicating. It's an exchange. It's not a one-way street. It's an exchange. I get back from my readers and listeners as much as I give to them, and same with my students.
Yeah, well, really well said, for sure. Here, a more esoteric question now from Danny Mask. He wants to know, how do you know when a poem has absorbed enough of your will? That's an interesting way to think about it. So,
This
yeah.
is an interesting, I think that this is just a beautiful revising of the most common question ever asked by any poetry student, which is, how do you know when a poem is done? But I love the idea of when it's absorbed enough of your will. And I think my answer is the same as how do you know when a poem is done? My poems are never done. When I read them, I am still revising. And I know that you have the text up. So knowing that, I made less changes than I normally do, but I will follow the music and I will keep kind of revising, shifting things as I recite the poem. So I think you take the poem to its furthest place, to the furthest level of absorption, right? Like it's saturated. And then you send it out, you share it. And then maybe as you share it, I like this metaphor of us absorption, right? Like some of that water leaks out, right? So you're a little less saturated. So maybe now you can shimmy and you can change some things around and then it absorbs even more of that will. Um, but I think it's a feeling. Like I feel when a poem is has absorbed enough of my will, and then I will send it to my most trusted readers and get their kind of go ahead. Because until someone else has read it, I'm not really sure it's even a poem.
Yeah, well, I think there's an argument for it to not be. You know, it's one of those mythological or questions. If nobody listens to a poem, is it a poem yet? And I think maybe the answer is no. But do you ever find yourself like not like missing the ending? You know, like overshooting it and realizing you pushed the poem too far or like not far enough. Like, do you have, because you mentioned before a sense of like the trajectory, you know? And
I
do you,
used to.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to overshoot the endings a lot. But now my motto is don't, there are certain lines you can't write past. That's the way I frame it for my students. Like once you get to this line, everything that happens beyond it, you can't overwrite this line. And I'm kind of learning to unlearn that a little bit because I find that my poems endings kind of close doors very hard. And in my newer poems, I'm kind of learning to, shut the door a little softer.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think often you find your ending like midway through your poem. Sometimes the first line becomes a last line. I think it but often it's in the middle of the poem. And that doesn't mean that everything that happens after is wasted. That just might mean the poem hasn't found its arrangement yet. And you need to kind of help yourself write towards that last line that you already discovered in the first draft. Um, but other times I'll find that I haven't found that last line yet. And so I have to keep writing or ending to find that ending. And I really want to be surprised. So if I know from the start of the poem what the ending is going to be, not excited about that poem. I want the ending to genuinely surprise me. Like that Michael Jackson poem that I read, I had no idea it was going to end with the languages. I genuinely, I was writing it and letting the music carry me. And I knew it would begin with kind of the cassette tape and it would end with the cassette tape, but I didn't know where else it was going to go.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. As you go through and you've got, apparently you have four already, then you have two forthcoming or sort of one manuscript-ish and another one forthcoming. Do you notice certain tendencies like that you have yourself? Like, because I notice it's one of the things I hate, it drives me crazy realizing, oh, I do this all the time, Do you notice that? And do you try to work and resist that and keeping your work fresh? Is that something you try to cultivate?
100%. So in my first book, I had this obsession with the mouth. I'm not saying it's gone away, but I looked and I'm like, wow, four of my poems end in the mouth. I got to fix that, right? We all have our obsessions. And I am really a believer that if you're obsessed with something, there's a reason. So keep writing it. But that doesn't mean don't be kind of very analytical of your own tendencies and crutches. So I think that for me, I'm like, I know a lot of ways to make that mouth really metaphorical and connect to all these other things. So if I don't know how to end, I'm like, oh, I'll just go back to this thing that's really rich in metaphor for me. Or in my first book and in 40 weeks, it's water because there's so much having to do with pregnancy that water was everywhere. And now I'm really kind of pushing myself to not do that and to challenge myself. And also, for me, a crutch is sad things. As a very lovely, jovial person in life, it's because I leave all the sad things on the page. And now I'm trying to embrace joy on the page. I'm trying to embrace humor. I think Louisa's had a great influence on me in that way. Um, and I think for me, that's the hardest thing to do. I've got a new poem called How to Write a Happy Poem.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm really enjoying this challenge to let myself be happy, both in life and on the page.
Yeah, well, definitely, it's a difficult thing. The main criticism we get, I think I got it like 2 days ago from Rattle, is that things are so dark. And it comes to be there's a problem in that so much of poetry is a kind of problem solving. It's like a psychological tool for like unlocking and understanding difficulties is so often what it is. And so it ends up being hard to break that. Like you learn that it's hard to get outside of that and make things lighter when that's really the function that it's doing at its heart in so many poems. And yet then we look and say, get the email tomorrow and you'll see that Cam McGlynn poem that cracked me up with a Facebook title. It's sort of also at the same time that you see what you're looking for. There was one more question and then we'll finish up with the last poem. Sherry K wanted to know this, and it's been a while since we talked about this, but she says, I'm thankful that it's not happening here, but have you had issue with your Jewish presenting poetry during readings or reviews? I'm Jewish and have heard these or not had these issues in poetry arenas. But there is sort of, there was a time of like strife with that, where there was a lot of stuff going on. Have you found any problems with that?
I think as someone who came as a Jewish refugee from a place that was rife with anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union, it said Jewish in our passports, right? So we were nationally marked. My parents couldn't go to the schools they wanted to go to, couldn't get the jobs that they wanted. When we emigrated here, it was the first time that being Jewish and that being a part of your identity could be something you were proud of. And I have never let that go, even amid, the devastation going on everywhere in the world, amid everything that is heartbreaking, and there's so much. Um, I I have let both my identity and my poetry be this reaching towards song and towards light. And so I haven't experienced that. And I, again, look for poetry as a way of making community and a way of sharing um, across difference, a way of connecting rather than a way of dividing. And I know it sounds hokey, but I do. I believe in it so much. I believe that poetry has the power to cause real change in the world, and to build empathy. And I want that for all of us.
Yeah, well, really well said. And really, that's the whole point of doing what we're doing. All of us as poets is making those connections, and anything that's trying to foster division is just in the way of poetry and that spirit that is poetry, I think. So really well said. Well, let's close out with one last poem from the book.
So I like to read this poem last because I feel like it's, happier. I think so. It's where the title Parallax comes from. And it's about all the things that my son continues to teach me. Why write another poem about the moon? From Earth, your thumb, little sun, is large enough to cover her whole face. Because comfort is someone staring at that same celestial body. Parallax fixes little, its geometry of eyes, but holds us accountable to distance. Because stone becomes brightest light, pleading for more of itself, our hands for more of another's. Because you told me we are all made of stars, and I didn't believe. So you turned comet through the house, a cloud of vapor in your wake, electrons and eons born in the belly of stars. You held my body in your small hands, careful now, whispering, stardust, stardust, how skin holds bone as though it were the sky, our insides constellations refusing eternal shape. You taught me to believe we all hold fragments of first light.
Yes, that was Why Write Another Poem About the Moon, one of the poems with that title from Julia Kolchinsky's newest book, Parallax. Julia, thanks so much for being a guest. It's been enlightening and entertaining and just wonderful poetry as we knew it would be. Really glad to be having you on again, and thanks for being here.
I'm so glad to be here. And I'll just say, the question I usually get is, how does your son feel about all these poems about him? And I just got to go and teach his fourth graders, like his fourth grade class, and read poems. And so all I'll say is that he loves being written about. When the book came, he read this poem out loud, this one that I just read, and he said, Mama, now I know your poetry's not boring. Okay, that's double thumbs, best review you could get. But then he said, and I didn't say stardust twice. I only said it once. So now I've got a fact checker for my future writing.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Julia. That's been a real pleasure, and glad to hear that. And keep doing what you're doing because it's great.
Thank you so much for having me, Tim. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Yes, that was Julia Kolchinsky. You can find Parallax and all of her work at Julia Kolchinsky. That's Julia, ColChinsky.com, juliakolchinsky.com. Find Parallax there. Find 40 Weeks. Watch that old Rattlecast too if you didn't get enough, Julia. I think that was episode number 190. So go back and watch that later if you want. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week was to write an essay that includes an allusion to at least 5 senses. So if you're not familiar with that form, that's Jane Hirschfield's form. She does a lot of essays, and we did a special episode of the Poetry Space on that last week. So you can listen to that to learn more, or you can sit tuned and hear more about them right now. Now, as always, a couple of reminders. If you'd like to share a poem, first email your poem to Prompt Lines. That's Prompt Lines, all one word, at rattle.com. Email your poem there so we can show it on screen as you read. And also find the Zoom link, which I'm about to deploy on Facebook and YouTube. Only join, though, if you would like to share a poem. And only share a poem if it's a one-page max. That's the rule for just the sharing poems on the Prompt Lines. You can always submit them. And keep in mind, we want it to be 3 minutes on camera at the most. So both of those things, we want short poems. If you got a longer poem that's filling up the whole page with a lot of long lines, make sure you jump right into it quick so we can get to as many people as possible. And we'll be back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. I'm here with our associate editor, Prompt Lines editor, and my wife, Katie Dozier. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that interview so much. As if I couldn't like Julia more. She had to talk about Free Willy. Like, come on.
I know, really. I watched Free Willy for the first time with you, like, I don't know, a few months ago with the kids.
And I explained that this was like, bigger than us getting married.
It was. The day is on our calendar. I have to get an anniversary. Free Willy 2.
He does not actually have to do that.
I'm just kidding.
It's so crazy. Okay. Anyway, I love Free
it was
Willy.
a great movie,
and I watched it many times, rented it many times too, so I could relate and can relate to so much of what she's writing about and everything too. So it was a wonderful interview. Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so the prompt for this week was to write an essay that includes an allusion to at least 5 senses. So we're not going to talk about which senses they were.
We trust you, and if it's close, I will look in the submissions. You will be graded in your. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But I will check for the 5 in your submissions. It's true, but we don't have to talk about it tonight. Thanks for bringing that up.
It's a long list of and there's actually like 13 senses, believe it or not.
I think there's more like 22.
22? Okay. Yes. Well, prime numbers though for sure. Anyway.
Okay.
So you have this essay.
So I wrote this one on a topic that I assumed for Poets Respond we were going to get a ton of poems on, but was not actually the case. So.
Interesting. And so I guess, should we describe what an essay is for people who...
I think you should be the one to take that one.
Well, that's, like we said, this is a form Jane Hirschfield came up with when she was thinking about a poem topic more like an essay than she normally would approach a lyric poem. Like she had a lot of information swirling around, a lot of ways she wanted to approach a subject. She would sort of let herself run with that and find like sort of the poetry within a lot of snippets of facts and details and quotes and try to hit everything from different angles. And speaking of Parallax, it's kind of like a Max Parallax situation, actually. So it's a perfect fit for this week, too. And so she's got some great ones. To Judgment, an essay, is probably my favorite of her into the forum. And we did a prompt a couple years ago, too, where it was an essay when she was the guest. So, but now...
So we had her on the Poetry Space for episode 118 and 119. And she also talked about how just calling it an essay kind of sets up the experience for the reader to think of it more as an essay. So this should sound a little different than I normally write. We'll see.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Let's hear it.
A penny for this essay. At first, the penny was all copper, but now it's a thin jacket over zinc. Every year, they weigh less and less. I smell a round, disintegrating thing. In 1982, the flip from copper to zinc. Drop the old coins to hear bells, but no, the new ones can only clink. I missed out on penny candy, but imagine those rainbow rows in jars, lined up like showgirls, scoops of lemon drops, the kind of bubblegum that really pops, the smile of so many sugared orange slices. I would have poured the pennies in at the Coinstar kiosk just for the feel of it. All of those industrial seashells I plucked from the pavement, a waterfall of change, and how I spent it all on a color-changing pen that day. When I was pregnant, I became an aquarium. My mouth was full of pennies swimming, the copper swirling around my tongue, the old metallic taste of little complaints. I threw a copper wish into the Trevi fountain. Once a year, they drain it to rake out millions. But it must have worked anyway, because I found him. The striking of the last penny ever was counted down, as if it were the big ball drop. We've all known someone who costs more than they're worth. The trick is just to stop.
Oh, well, that was a great use of the essay. I have to say, I love the fountain anecdote.
I hope you like the fountain.
That is so sweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful example of the forum, Katie. So did you do a lot of research moving in about...
I enjoyed my Wikipedia perusal for this. I actually wrote, this is not an often thing for me to say, but a 3-page poem and then had to cut it to be the max of the prompt line. So I'm not sure if it will be a much longer poem. I feel like it could be, or if I just am going to keep it like this.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure you mentioned that because it was
pretty
impressive.
You were shocked when I was like, I wrote a 3-page poem.
3 pages.
Yeah.
Well, really sweet, though. I love that.
Thanks. Well, I'm curious. And also congrats on finishing the prompt poem before me this week. A rarity.
Well, I had to fly to Los Angeles for a board meeting. And so I wrote a poem on the plane on no sleep at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever, the earliest flight out. And the challenge for me was to see, because I want to write these alliterative verse sonnets or whatever you call them. And to get that into an essay was a little tricky because it's tight, so I got to see what I could do. But I tried to give it a shot. This is Absence, an essay. Even the thought, thin and theoretical, as the calculated constituents of a collided quark, implies a presence as precise as any presence would be. Behold it, bullhorns, by not being there. It's nothing now with a shape. A child makes a chain of children holding hands from heavy paper, and what falls to the floor in folded scraps are just as many approximate arms. You had a sister. You saw her shape in a fuzzy photo your father faithfully kept like a clue in the closet. Even then, she smiled the way a widow would. It felt like quantum foam. The fragrance was the scent of home, held so wholly in the nose's nacre that you only notice when you've been gone. It grows gossamer, gibbous like a moon, mere as matter. So that is
And
Absence.
You snuck the moon in there. I see.
Snuck the moon in there too.
It's interesting too, because when you and Julia were talking about the difference between sort of American poetry and European poetry, and how European poetry you feel is less locked in time. I feel like your poetry in general is less locked in time, and it's really nice to kind of exist in a timeless place.
Oh, well,
when you're
thanks.
reading it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
which makes you distinctly European and me American. So,
well.
Well.
That's true. Well, it's a love across oceans, right? All right. Well, well, that was wonderful. I love yours, Katie, and glad. Looking forward to seeing what everybody else.
Yeah, me too. I'm really interested.
Well, let's see. And let's go first to, let's jump right in with Amanda Harris.
prose poem or, even a little bit like microfiction. So I'm just going to jump right in.
Okay.
The King in All His Regalia, 1977, after Elvis Presley. The king in all his regalia sniffs a jewel that crawls up the spine of his ears. Spines are musical things is a mantra he breathes into himself, knowing that conspiracy theories are a dumbbell that carries the weight of the tongue. The king's favorite thing to fantasize about is bacon. Bacon comes from a dead animal. If I could, I would race up the greasy leather of a dead animal as if bacon could be made living. The king does not believe in the idea of bacon being made living. He does not believe in breathing either. The king believes that what has fur can and might be made into food. Food, if you think about it, is a kind of regalia stripped of fingernail marks and eyes. Crowns have eyes, says the king. Notes dance off his tongue.
Well, that's a really interesting poem, Amanda. I love that that food is a kind of regalia stripped of fingernail marks.
Thank you.
It's really funny.
Yeah, what a
And
cool.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. As always,
Thank
a lot
you.
of fun.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so it was Amanda Harris with her poem "The King in All His Regalia." Let's see. Let's go next to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Jared. Great to see you.
Good to see you. So I did tannins. The hush of leaves beneath my feet silences thought until the thunk of an acorn falling on the sidewalk makes me think of the happiness of squirrels. But how can anything so common be valuable? These acorns sitting piled in their adorable little caps. Why don't the squirrels eat them? Why don't we? We do, of course. Acorns are so full of tannins that to make them edible, you have to soak them for days in changes of cold water. When the water stays clear, they're ready to be ground into flour or made into totori muck, acorn jelly. Squirrels do the same thing. They cache their acorns until enough water is run through them to take away some bitterness. What is bitterness? They say a sense of bitterness evolved to warn us against toxins. Children are especially sensitive to bitterness to protect them from poisoning. But over time, some of us introduce bitterness into our lives. Chocolate, orange peel, radicchio, dandelion leaves, jelan, kugwa, alcohol, coffee, tea, medicine, because even when it isn't poisonous, bitterness is transformative. Why would anyone seek bitterness? Why is bitterness part of life instead of just a guardrail? Possibilities. A taste for bitterness is an appetite for pain, masochism, death wish. A taste for bitterness is an appetite for conflict. Bitterness complexifies. A taste for bitterness is an appetite for transformation. We use the tannins from oak bark for tanning leather. Tannins are an astringent and permanently alter the protein structure of skin. If bitterness doesn't kill you, it makes you durable, waterproof, pliable. What are the stakes of an acorn? Fecundity, whose stakes are life itself, argues nothing. But to an acorn, the stakes of an acorn are everything. To an oak tree, the stakes are a potential oak tree. To me, the stakes are what I choose to stake, because I'm autonomous. I would bet the world on an acorn. Since they're taller and wetter than other trees, oaks are commonly struck by lightning. This led ancient Celts to consider oaks especially beloved of the gods, which is reasonable. Being loved isn't being safe. Being loved is being traveled by mysterious power, being a bridge between worlds, between the sky and the earth and the dark waters within the earth.
A really cool topic to be learning a lot about tannins. Thanks so much for sharing that, Jared.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, tannins. It's something I've read about a lot because we had so many acorns in oaks and rightwood.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very curious, and it is true. It's tough to get meat out of them that are edible. Let's go next to Laura Berg.
Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, Laura. Great to see you.
This was a very exciting topic, this essay, a real discovery. So
Oh,
let's
great.
see. And
Yeah.
so I decided to do the spine. The spine. Spine. Prone on a rooftop, Gaudi's ceramic sea beast, bling blue spine etching the sun. Contortionists curling like conches, even their sweat ingenious. Strange mathematical notes, C1 to C7, T1 to T12, L1 to L5, like radio calls, but soundless, ending in the holy bone, sacrum. Chord or chord, a silent keyboard, unless it cracks. Kids courting danger, racing down a railroad track. My nephew flying off a cliff, L4 and L5 cracked. It could have been worse. A turkey's pegged neck bones we dry so they're paper light, then toss like dice. A slipped disc like our country's, no longer aligned. The lightning flash hurt of it. That stiff feeling like a stiff. Courage, they say, have some spine. Oh, to be spineless, invertebrate, a bee, an ant, pollen. Wouldn't that be something? A water drop.
Yeah, well, I love that use of it. It really got the sense of the guzzle-like almost division between things
The
in that
breaks,
one.
yeah. And I love the way it also became, like we were talking about when we did the structure and surprise prompt, a list with a twist where you go to something that's entirely spineless at the end, which I was not expecting. So that was really wonderful.
Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. It's Laura Berg with Spine. Next, let's go to Hammett is back.
Hammett, yay!
Yay!
Hi.
Hi, Hammett. Yeah, it's so great to see you.
I so miss being here. I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, we've missed you too.
Yeah, we do all miss you. Yay, we're so happy to see you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know how successful this is, but I did intend it to be an essay. Wind, an essay. A chameleon, she blows onto the stage like the star, expects your attention, her coiled sinew primed for glory. The welcome swallow grips tighter as she fingers the feathers at his throat. The leaves of linden, pale green, nod and shiver his branch, shuffle their awkward dance of compliance. The bird tires of trying, leaps for a swirl, and outflies it. Wind grumbles at the trick, drops her whip and turns. Moody is the monster this morning. My hair will leap to her taunting, loosen curls into frizz. I'll hold my back taut to her fury, grumpy old witch. At her quickest, on a broomstick spun from cyclone, she lurched through the ocean to Barrow Island in '96, near tipped it over in her rage. I've seen her mercy on occasion, when she's breathed over beads on my forehead, as if cooling her babe. No malice in her movements, just caress, like she loves me. She's brought me the scent of jasmine straight through my window, and the smell of coming rain, so earthy I could taste it when I needed a morsel of hope. She knows when it's time to teach and when it's time to wait.
Well, another beautiful poem, Wind, an essay. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Hammond. It's so great to have you back.
Thanks,
Are you going to be able to come more regularly now moving forward?
No, I took a few days off, so I'm not at work today, but I'm normally at work at this time.
Well, hopefully.
Never mind, I'm always listening.
Yeah. Well, we know you're here in spirit.
Yeah.
We always appreciate it. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was Hammond Malik with Wind, an essay. Let's go next to Dick Westheimer.
Hey, all.
Hey,
Dick, great to see you.
You hear this from me a lot, but what a terrific interview. I mean, I love Julia as a person and as a poet, and listening to her today was one of those Rattlecasts where you'll listen to it again.
Oh, great.
That's how I felt too. And if I can be so bold, if poets are prophets, when you two were speaking, I felt that energy from you all in the interview. It was really neat. I agree, Dick.
Yeah.
It was a great interview.
Well, thanks.
Terrific. Well, somebody commented on a Facebook post of mine and said about my confusion about essays, not sure why it's so confusing, Dick. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm going to kind of look at it again. And what I kind of figured out is so many of my poems are sort of essays that I spend a lot of time researching them. And, the very first poem I had in Rattle, I Like Muons, was in some respects an essay. So anyway, this one is called Space, an essay, not Space, the Final Frontier. In the beginning, there was uncertainty, and space was an old alarm clock without a face. I know this because I am made of probabilities, which is the same as space. Think of an apple. How do you know what is beneath its skin? Does it only pop into existence when your teeth meet its flesh? Exactly when did it taste like an apple? That is how we know what space is. I thought it was empty, that nothingness is a thing, but there it is, full of virtual particles that are nothing except what holds everything together, like love, which is nothing, holds hands together. This must be where new space comes from as the universe expands. From love, from quantum bells calling believers to pray, from a wish I wished on that star whose light braved gravity wells to find my eyes. Me and not me, gazing into the night, knowing the space between the particles that make up me is full of you and you and you, plus every one of our wishes made on every star and the space alive between them.
Yeah, well, beautiful poem. I love where you went with that, Dick. Yeah, and definitely, I think, and that was me leaving you a Facebook comment.
It was not me.
It was not Katie, just to take the blame.
It was Tim Green.
It was, but I agree that you're always writing essay-like, and it just makes sense. So it seems like a form you should be thinking, or just it's not really a form; it's a way of approaching poems. So,
mode.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it takes I'll just say a little pointed comment to jerk you back into understanding, and then also listening to part 2 of Jane's interview with you, Katie, was again really helpful to me.
Oh, great. Well, I was lucky to speak with Jane Hirschfield, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much, Dick.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, that was Dick Westheimer with Space, an essay. Let's go next to Nancy Tunnell. Are you there, Nancy? There you go.
I couldn't find my cursor.
No.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello. Mine is longer than poems I usually write. It's about 28 lines, so I'm going to jump right in.
All right.
To the Angel Oak of John's Island, an essay. You, ancient oak, have stood as witness to the foolishness of this world. Rooted, stoic, you have persevered through centuries, through the soft greening of countless springs, and each fall's deciduous release of gold leaves. You wear so well the cycles of nature. The lightning strikes and hurricane winds have not harmed you. I can't even imagine your sapling years, long before the bark was rugged and thick on those muscled branches, massive and marked with their intricate production of countless twigs. Your canopy of leaves in the heat of summer offered shelter to lovers, not only then, but now. Your shade, the envy of enslaved workers when they marched to the fields to pick and to plow. You felt the earth rumble from the thunder of men who fought many battles, blood seeping into your roots. Today the ground hums as the automobiles come, full of tourists who scramble for pictures with you. Angel Oak, you have watched civilization unfold as we, who are transient participants in your world, marvel at your longevity, your magnificence, and your beauty. Your limbs are bowing low as if they needed rest, or perhaps everything we have forced you to see has wearied you enough to bring you to your knees. I say you are wisdom, reaching to embrace us, desiring to teach us the secrets of the earth.
Let me see a beautiful picture of that tree, too. What a great
Wow.
topic.
Yes,
for
I
writing
did
a
include a
poem on.
picture.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that that tree has been immortalized in a poem. It definitely deserves it.
Definitely, yeah.
There are all kinds of legends about it, about the age, but it has
Oh.
stood through a lot of many centuries.
Well, very cool.
Wow.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Nancy Tennell with To the Angel Oak of John's Island, an essay, and we should visit John's Island. That sounds great one to check out. Next, let's go to Jeff Stumpo.
Hey, y'all. How you doing?
Hey,
Good. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing okay. You got me, as I keep saying week after week, I've got this particular project going where I'm working in forms, and sometimes they're very weird. But anytime I find to come across a new one, new to me at any rate, I'm like, yes, I can fit in another artist this way. So you've actually given me a section header or a section break poem now in the manuscript.
Great.
The inside baseball here is that new school hip hop specifically is supposed to refer to 1983 to 1987. But the deja vu is that every 5 years or so in hip hop, somebody comes along and there's like a clean break of, this is new school because everything else doesn't work anymore. It's not entirely true, but something like that. So to Deja Vu, an essay for the new school and for Jane Hirschfield. Click of tape player. Sucker MCs plays for a few seconds before being cut off by voice recording. A measure of your beat is all it takes to feel broken in Adidas on their feet, laceless, strutting past breakers and cardboard, hissing beneath tracksuits and denim like a tape recording or spray can. Their mind's eyes perfectly picture graffiti, take over Reaganomic walls, a magic trick worthy of Houdini, bold as Hancock and Krylon scrawl. Car exhaust and the offerings of corner carts mingle on their tongues, summer sweat perfuming from boombox-shouldered hard bodies, loved by ladies and ladies loved by them. You know you are some specific point in history, but you renew every time the muse hits the streets. Tape noise, possible note, click.
Well, that is another very cool form, Jeff. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a secret sonnet.
A secret sonnet. Oh, you're right. Look at that.
That is secret. Wow.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I'm always excited to hear the different ways you're taking things.
Always keeps us on our
different forms.
toes.
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely, Jeff. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, it's Jeff Stumpo with To Deja Vu.
Also makes me want to hear the click of a tape player. It has been a very long
It has,
time
now that you
since
mention
I
it.
heard
Probably
that.
like a fake one.
Oh my
heard more
gosh,
recently than
I
a
want to
real
hear
one.
it. Let's go back to the thrift store.
Yeah, maybe we should. That's not a bad idea. All right, let's go next to Nate Jacob.
Nate Jacob? It couldn't be.
This little ghost is here.
I
How are
know,
you?
it's great to see it. Well,
Hi.
all the old, wonderful people are coming back today. That's
I'm
great.
surprised he's coming back with how he's doing in fantasy football.
Oh.
I'm
Sorry.
having a horrible year there. It's fine.
I'm moving up.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I've apparently run into everybody having the best fantasy football week ever.
That's what they all say.
It is, I think, because I said that the week Katie beat me too.
Yeah, I said that both times Katie beat me. Anyway, I don't have a lot of time to write poetry lately, so I've been absent. But this week I took today off from work and had some time to work on this.
Oh,
That's
I'm
great.
glad to
hear
hear it.
Yeah.
Here we are. History and assay. Everything is dust on some level. Solids crumble into it. Liquids dry up, become it. The wind will carry enough of it to be it. Windstorms becoming dust storms, deafening, blinding, coating mouth and nose. Over time, layer, stratum, and epoch can be measured by the layers of dust you scratch at with your tools, reading the sediments back in the hope that everything covered by it is equally recalled by it, as if fingerprints left behind by the crimes of times gone by. And if you can only identify some sort of motive, you will also know how everything happened, when and why it did. Remember, though, dust is the destruction of whatever it is you seek, the remainder of what once was, what you always seek, and what you have always, what you always seek, and what you always have, eventually may be carried off, dispersed as gritty reminder of time having passed and settled across everything else.
Well, very cool, Nate. I love that line. Dust is the destruction of whatever it is you seek.
Yes, and I hope that too you're having that experience where when you don't have as much time to write, it just comes out at least when you do. So I hope
It's a struggle lately, but I'll take what I get. It's good to finally get one out of me.
Well, you wrote a poem today, Nate Jacob. Way to go.
One a month, I guess I'll call that a win.
Well, thanks. So glad you could be here.
Yeah,
Nate.
nice to see you.
Great to see you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, it was Nate Jacob with History, an essay. Next, let's go to Nivedita.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Nivi, great to
Nivi.
see you.
Hey guys, great to see you too. Hope all's well.
Yeah, definitely. Hope you're doing well too.
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Written like Nancy was saying, this is slightly longer than the ones I usually write, but I couldn't make it any shorter despite my best attempts. And I hope it's an essay. Let me put it that way.
Well, it is a form that lends itself to longer
It
poems.
does. Yeah, it definitely does. I can relate.
The Anatomy of Inquiry. In the silent depths of questioning, you are a shadow stretching across uncharted waters. You exist in the spaces between the known, not in the shimmer of a gemstone, but the faint hum of a distant star's whisper, something felt but not fully grasped. I measure you not in the length of a shadow or the weight of a stone, but in the fragile threads of a spider's web. You are not found in the ripple of a pond or the echo of a distant bell, but in the quiet pulse of a heartbeat, the unseen rhythm that drives the gears of justice and chaos. I seek you through the lens of research to decode what slips through my grasp. You are both question and answer, forever elusive, forever compelling, a poem written in the language of discovery. Thank you.
All right, the Anatomy of Inquiry. Really cool thing, again, to write an essay about. Thanks so much for sharing that, Nivi.
Thanks, Nivi.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, that was Nivedita Karthik with Anatomy of Inquiry. Let's go next to... let's go to a first-time caller. Leslie Ann Sketchers is here.
Hi. Yeah.
Hey.
Leslie Ann Schechterson. I know it's a mouthful.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't all on my screen. But
Yeah.
now we've got it. Leslie Ann Schechterson. Yeah, so glad you could join us.
Yeah, I travel a lot and I just found you probably like last summer from the Stafford Challenge.
Ah,
So
great. Yeah, it was so fun to visit that group. It definitely was.
Wow, so all of this is new to me, really. So this is just my second year of the Stafford Challenge, and actually getting outside of my little community to actually be in that larger community of poets is just wonderful.
Yeah,
Great.
well, very cool. So glad you did. Yeah.
So I'm not used to writing to prompts. I'm just sort of starting to get out of myself and what I've felt like I've needed to write, and now so this is a challenge.
Well, excellent. I look forward to hearing it.
Glad you're
here.
Finding your Sonder. Sonder, the realization that each person on this earth is living a life of individual complexity. Like an atom, each of us is our own nucleus, the center of negatives and positives spinning around in its own orbit. Some are close, many are far away in outer shells, and most we will never encounter. Sonder, noun, from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, John Koenig, 2009. I do not feel sadness as the word softly flows out my mouth, but rather a calmness, a warm sip of Earl Grey tea in the morning sun, its strong bergamot aroma dissipating through me. A gentle breeze lifts my hair, then delicately places it back on my shoulders. Were I to remain this way, a statue in the middle of my 10 acres, far from the paved road of civilization, you would still do what you do. The same people would be at that dark bus stop. The dozing security guard would still greet the next person walking in the building at 6 a.m. The holiday lights on Bear City trees would still turn off when daylight arrives, revealing the homeless sleeping in doorways with all their belongings cushioning their shivering bodies. Festering urine vapors would still sting your nose hairs. Everyone will still rush by, sucking in that pumpkin spice latte. Cinnamon, nutmeg, sweet whipped cream coffee, soothing commuters that have become tone deaf to cars screeching like fingernails on a chalkboard as they halt for the cripple too slow in the crosswalk. Drivers without Sonder wave one finger salute. Tears well in my eyes with that sad vision. Obscure sorrow? No, just hatred normalized. Sonder redefined. Now expressed with action. Food distributed to the hungry, coats given to the street dwellers, a listening ear to the lonely, dollars donated to help those in foreign lands. Words written with compassion to bring joy to those negative and positive souls spinning around me, and those I will never cross paths with.
Well, another great choice for what to write about with Sonder. I
really
love that word, and I
interesting.
haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those cool words you think, oh, I'm always going to remember that one. And kind of forget about it. Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that, Leslie Ann. And you're so glad you could be here. Hope you come back again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I forgot to ask where you're calling from, too.
The road to nowhere. Long Branch, Washington. It's about 35 minutes south of Gig Harbor on the Key Peninsula. So as the crow flies, I'm about 5 miles across from Olympia, across Puget Sound. But you have to go way around to Tacoma.
Definitely a wonderful place to be. Yeah.
It is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Leslie. And hope to see you again soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was Leslie Ann Sketcherson with Find Your Sonder, an essay. All right. And let's go next to Christiana Doucette.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Christiana. Great to see you.
Good to see you, too. I'm pulling up mine over on the other side here.
Christiana, I got the book that you recommended, and I love it.
Oh, Song for a Whale?
No, the other. Sorry, it's the craft book.
Now by Susan Spears and David Rothman.
Yeah, and she's not even letting me read it, really. She's just running off in the porch and reading it without me.
Yeah, it's great. So thanks. Sorry, I meant to bring it on air, but I forgot.
It's super interesting, and I think it does a really good job. Like, I feel like it helped me understand, like, scanning poems much better than I had previously.
Well, that's great.
I'm really glad.
Yeah.
I had recommended Song for a Whale a little earlier when you were mentioning Free Willy, because it's but it's not in verse.
I was like, I didn't know that yet.
It's a story about a girl who's deaf, and she hears about this whale that was born with a birth defect, and so it can never communicate with the other whales. Its vocal tone is too low for them to hear, and so she decides she wants the whale to be able to hear someone else and communicate with someone else. So she steals her grandmother and goes on like this epic journey to talk to the whale, and it's it's so good. So, Song for a Whale if you like Free Willy.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's my book talk. My essay that I did is an essay on frogs. I might change it later on, the title, but that's what I've got for now. And I'll just dive into it.
Okay.
An essay on frogs. To eat a way out of a jelly world into the chill of beaks and snappers. To change and change and change again, losing the way to breathe through water, giving up those frilled gills for higher ground. To push fresh limbs out of swishing tail into the mud, embrace frail lungs' first gulp. To straddle two worlds, the dirt and air, the talons and beaks, the sweet butterflies and sour ants, slippery banks and brick walls, the fox stalking, the crow's quick clutch, and then to plunge through clawing air to where the wet, welcome inks your entry in circles that circle inside and out, overlapping each other. To weigh the moist against the rough scales of the big mouth trying to swallow you and slip away, to sip the air in and out, eyes only above, to escape the creek bed, the catfish, the cattail bending under the swallow, to live always a dive away from death, to live a leap pulled through air, to breathe through skin that can never thicken because that is what keeps alive, to hold that thin skin as strength instead of weakness, to arrive alive, air on your skin, oxygen drawn through the pond's damp kiss into blood, into legs, into every leap.
Well, powerful as always. Thanks so much for sharing that, Christiana. That was an essay on frogs.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, and that was Christiana Doucette with an essay on frogs. And next, let's go to Brian O'Sullivan.
Hello. How are
Hey,
you?
Brian.
Hey, Brian. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to be here. Got here a little late. Can't wait to listen to the interview because I could tell from the end that it was awesome.
Yeah. Julia's great. So definitely full of great
Mm-hmm.
poetry and
Well, thought since we were trying to figure out essays, the thing to do would be to write about essays. So it's kind of a meta essay. It's also syllabic for some reason, which probably makes it weird. It's not really an essay, but it is what it is.
Great.
Essays, an essay. After Jane Hirschfield's Wetness, an essay, and Poe, an essay. Those are pearls that were his eyes, nothing of him that doth fade, but that suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Shakespeare, The Tempest. Take wetness, take incense, take common sense, take Poe, his half-closed eyes, his hiddenness. Take assayness, take anything or non-thing or anyone, de-thingify them, break their coherent veneer, taste their notes of mud, survey their oars, should be assay their oars, lay their guts on a stone table and scry and try to find order, to find meaning in their messiness, reveal their inner hiddenness, shining dark, iridescent pearls, fill eye sockets, see change, reveal it.
Well, that's great. An essay on essays. I wonder if you could do an essay on essays on essays. And
And then really, it's just you end up in a room with mirrors looking at each other.
Excellent. Yeah, well, another great idea. Thanks so much for sharing that, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Brian's always challenging himself. Not enough to do the essay of essays, also has to be syllabic.
Yeah, exactly. Add an extra,
Just
extra
another
layer.
extra layer. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah, that's Brian O'Sullivan with essay, an essay.
Essays. An essay.
Essays, an essay. There you go. All right. Let's go next to let's go to gotta scroll back. Oh, let's go to Carla Schwartz.
Hi.
Hey, Carla.
Hey, Carla. Great to see you.
I'm glad to be here. It was a really good night. And this one will be, there'll be some gore in it and some words that a reader would have to look up. And that's all I'll say.
Okay.
To blood an essay after Jane Hirschfield's To Judgment, an essay. To hear the phlebotomist's needle enter skin, the purple of you, drawn through a plastic tube, to hear an ant sneeze, the faint whisper of wind, the slicing of carrots, of tomatoes, of cukes, too close to fingers, fingers rushed in to mouth, the taste of iron on tongue, quiet pulse of a throbbing thumb. Fresh roses, bright lips, ruby slippers, your corpuscles carry oxygen to my muscles. I've seen cotton draped in you for years, the pouring down, the dripping, the seeping brown into cloth, the stale, sour smell of specks mingled with maroon, Rorschach blotches of you, dried on a white pad, a gathering of tall conifers, a child dancing, an elk, his head, his rack. For pleasures, you fill the corpora cavernosa, enhance the dance of two as one. After the cutting, the slicing, the hot knifing, after the extraction, the excision, the gushing flood of you. For closure, the piercing of flesh, the tying of monofilament, the stitching up with hope to contain you until a scar, pale and pink, with just a hint of you. After gunshots, after bombings, after planned collisions, collateral damage, you rush in, rush out, rush down, stain cloth, stain stone, stain ground. The shots, they keep coming for you. Just before you left me, thick clots of you oozed, gooey, burgundy wine, mud through which I could not move without feeling you, without losing you. Before birth, you are the dead, baby. As for your birth, hemopoiesis, how poetic, except for a cancer of you, dysfunctional multitudes of cells, your cells that drowned my mother.
Well, it's a powerful ending, and then so much detail in the beginning poem, too. A lot of words to look up. You're right, but I love looking up words. Thanks so much for sharing that, Carla.
Thanks, Carla.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was Carla Schwartz with To Blood, an essay. Let's go next to Audrey Friedman.
Hello, friends.
Hey, Audrey. Great to see you.
Good to be here. Okay. Anger, an essay. Anger, you smolder, dry twigs at the beginning, and before long, you are so hot that you turn frozen cold and solid. I watched you teaching, throwing textbooks at the board when a young teen couldn't solve the equations, or stop plastering the ceiling of your classroom with streams of vile spitballs. You devour all that is young and green. So, of course, the gentlest of beings slip behind tall grasses, desks, or apartment doors. Can you temper your flames? Should you? Would that extinguish your flames? Anger, what a conundrum.
Really interesting. Again, another interesting use of that form.
Yeah.
To speak to anger directly. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing
Great to
Audrey.
see you, Audrey.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Audrey Friedman with Anger, an essay. Let's see. Let's go next to Rob Harris.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob. Great to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was fortunate enough last weekend to go to Las Vegas and see the Wizard of Oz at Sphere.
Oh, cool.
Oh, really?
And
You really get out there, Rob. There's so much. Yeah, you live your life. I'm admiring that.
I do my best. I'm not a big Vegas fan, but this was worth the trip, and it engaged all the senses, and it just seemed to lend itself to an essay, or at least an attempt at it. So I found a picture to go with it. If it's up on the screen, that's what the wizard looks like in the new reimagining of the. I call my work is called The Wizard of AI, an essay, because this couldn't have been done without AI being used. And so I ruminated on that, or at least I tried to. Goes like this. L. Frank Baum's classic American story is receiving some new attention for its innovative visual on-screen imagery, which can properly be described as magical. In this latest adaptation of the story, there's a twister of terrifying proportions, utilizing the latest technical wizardry, which is abetted by several powerful fans. Some important elements of this story have been enhanced and expanded to create a truly immersive experience, which makes Oz sound even more menacing. And that's Oz in the picture, by the way. Never before has any such story packed this much olfactory and gestational wallop, including some dank forest scenes which offer a pungent, mossy heatiness. Cinema's most widely viewed story has gifted at least 1 million viewers with a one-of-a-kind experience which they won't soon forget. I wanted to mention the witch, and then once I realized that I inserted the word witch, I realized it's a homonym, but I used it in every stanza because I think underlying all the whole story is the two witches, the good witch and the bad witch. So once I realized that, and the use of story in every stanza was also kind of a intentional choice I made. But I would suggest anybody who loves the movie, and even those who are just curious, it's worth the trip out to Vegas and check it out if you can. I think it runs through the end of March. So I'm not promoting it. I'm not trying to. I don't make it.
Yeah, that would be the secret. He's traveling to places to promote all these.
Maybe I'll send it to them after I'm done with this and say, hey, tell me what you think. But I wrote this just because I was so blown away by it, and I've never spent $200 to see a movie before, but this one was worth it. So
yeah, well, we every time we fly through Vegas, we get to make sure we get the seat on the right side of the plane, or at least try to see the sphere going in, because it's wild
cool
seeing, especially when they have at night that moon.
It's
like the moon sitting
one.
there.
Yeah.
On the
so
strip.
cool.
It's bizarre. Anyway,
yeah.
Thanks so much for
I'm
sharing
looking
that, Rob.
forward to the next movies that they do this with. I think the success of this means there'll be others. I'm hoping for either Star Wars or maybe Titanic, something like that.
Well, I'm hoping for poetry books, Rob.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe a Parallax or.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you see the moon? Honey?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Rob. Yeah, great to see you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Rob Harris was the Wizard of AI in essay. All right, and let's go next to Tina Deniclaw.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tina.
Hey, Tina. Great to see you.
Good to see you guys, too. And thank you again to Christiana. She makes it possible for me to run in here and just click on her Zoom link for me and try to get on. So
that's really nice.
Really
glad you can make it.
Yeah. So let's see here. So I did actually some research, even though this is about cinnamon toast. I'm trying to see if there was like another name for it in other cultures, and everybody just calls it cinnamon toast. And also there's no name for the cinnamon sugar and butter, even if you put it in a filling it's like why do you need another name for water? That's
that's interesting.
So at any rate, so I'm not sure this is an essay, but I tried to hit the elements. So Zimp toast, pan perdu in a child's eyes. There is nothing better than cinnamon sugar on buttered toast in a toddler's hand for breakfast. First foray into independence, breaking down the parts. You don't need to wait for mother. I can do this myself. toaster bread, not too much cinnamon, or the sugar will be hot. Leave the butter on the counter the night before. It's a gritty disappointment if the butter doesn't melt.
Way to break down that Zimp toast. Very cool. Thanks so much for sharing that, Tina.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was Tina Deniclaw with Zimp toast. And let's close out the way we started with Chelsea McGlynn back 2.5 hours later.
Hi. I tricked you.
You did. So I saw you pop up and I was like, she told me she didn't. Did she write an essay during the show? I don't know what happened.
No.
So what did he have for us?
I decided to share it's a rough draft and a rough draft of an idea, but I'm interested in how to take this farther. So I wanted to share what I have.
Wonderful.
So if you want to just actually scroll down and just show the word cloud first. My idea was, because a real assay in science, a lot of it, at least what we do at my job, is taking a sample, like a blood sample, and quantifying like what kinds of cells are in that blood sample, like how many T cells and B cells and red blood cells are in there. So I was trying to figure out how to like write a poem and then just delete the poem itself and only reveal the words, the most important words left behind. But I'm not sure it's worked. So I'll just read what I actually wrote. My Broken Heart, an Assay. In her desk drawer, Mary Shelley kept her husband's calcified heart wrapped in a page of his poetry. I don't know what my heart tastes like, but when it misbehaves, I do taste a hot penny on my tongue, sliding down the back of my throat. Fish flop, pitter-patter, critter, digger, iambic to anapest, to spondy, to dactyl, da-dum, da-da-dum, dum-dum-dum, da-da. Frankenstein's creature, shocked into life. Did his heart beat in a sinus rhythm, or did his too misbehave? At the gym, I lie down on the floor, feet up on the bench, my trainer crouched over me, offering Gatorade. I take it and pretend to drink. Later, I vomit fluorescent orange in the parking lot. What did you think when I said I had a broken heart? If only my liver was unruly instead, or kidney too scrappy for its own good, then I would have poetic permission to write about my organ. I propose a ban on healthy poets writing of their hearts. Their metaphor is another tool to marginalize my parts and pieces. Sometimes metaphors become cliches. Sometimes cliches should be crushed. Smell the dust of acidified paper crumbling around a heart.
Well, very interesting, especially the concept of stripping it down to that word cloud.
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, really neat. Thanks for sharing that.
And congrats again on your Poets Respond poem. And I hope it really encourages, too, more poets writing the prompt poems to submit to Poets Responds also. I know yours wasn't technically an essay, but I think maybe it had a nod to an essay, if I can say that.
It for sure did, yes.
So great. And I loved it, too. So
definitely.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Chelsea. Yeah. There's Chelsea McGlynn with My Broken Heart, an essay. All right. And I think that is going to wrap up the Zoom over here. It is. So let's move on to our haiku for this week. So what do you have for a closing coup?
I have a 3-word haiku.
Okay.
Actually 2.5 word, maybe.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Let's see what we've got.
Okay. Oh, playing possum.
Yeah, well, that is dark. Speaking of dark poetry, I always got to the places that we have to confront, which as death staring us in the face.
Yeah, there's this thing where a lot of possums are dying in our neighborhood, and I had to go buy one on a bike ride to get out of the neighborhood. Anyway, but then, obviously the other part about this is the O being silent, because I still think it's the weirdest spelled word. I just can't get over it.
It really is strange. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, really cool.
Thank you.
Really cool little mono coup there.
Thank you.
Oh, playing possum. All right. I think Charlotte would like that too, especially.
Yeah.
All right. And then here mine. So me and Katie went to a little date night trip to a murder mystery dinner.
It was the best date. Oh my God. The decoration budget for that place was $3. It was amazing.
I was going to say $5. I mean, they had, and I've got another one.
Tape.
I made another haiku about the tea light candle. The one that they put.
One tea light candle in the center of the table.
It really felt like an abandoned hotel that they just found room for. But then But it was highly entertaining.
It was
in
wonderful.
a lot of ways. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was fun was the acting. So here's my little, I guess it's more of a senru about, here we go. Too obvious in the effort not to be bad actors. There you go. So Katie got the monoku. I got a rare 4-line haiku.
The rare 4-liner. Nice.
But yeah. So it really was funny because it was obvious who the actors were, like immediately.
But I was also trying to rep like I was one of the actors, and
You
I think I really had them going. It was wonderful.
They really, I mean, what story? Oh yeah, we added a poetry magazine.
Yeah, and then they're like grilling me, like, "Oh, so you write poems? That's the only way to get people to ask you about poetry is if you're at a murder mystery dinner and they think you might be the killer."
Exactly. Poems? Do you write song lyrics? Like the one that was found on the body? Yeah.
Anyway,
that was
10
fun.
of 10 experience.
Definitely. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, that was our haiku for this week. And now the prompt for this week is going to be what, Katie Dozier?
We are going to write a poem that begins with an ordinary parenting event that snowballs into something more. So of course, this doesn't. If you're not a parent, you can still write a poem about a parenting event.
Well,
So
you
I just
experience them.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably
That's
at
why
some
it's
point.
worded
Yeah.
that way. Is my point. So don't feel like you have to go in a certain direction and write about a different, one you witnessed or an alien parenting. I don't know. There are a lot of ways to go with this. So
Well, excellent. Yeah, well, that should come with a lot of great stories
Right.
to share. A lot of heart, too, I bet. Write a poem that begins with an ordinary parenting event that snowballs into something more. A little snow in there as well. Interesting little nod to the season, perhaps.
How dare you, sir?
Anyway, that's going to be a prompt for next week. And next week's guest in the Rattlecast is going to be Richard Gilbert. Now, Richard Gilbert is one of the sort of the intellectual of the haiku community. He appeared on episode number 6 of the Rattlecast way back then. Watch, and it's kind of fun if you're funny or something.
Oh,
Go back
man,
and
you
look at
have
those
learned a
episodes.
lot, Tim, since
I have
you're-
learned a lot. Also, my face was like right. That was before I realized I need to buy a camera that zooms out, like has a wide focal range. or
So we
whatever
have
it's called.
that to look forward to
Yeah,
in
my
revisiting
forehead
the
to look
6th
forward
episode of
to.
the Rattlecast.
But yeah, a fascinating conversation. His last book was called Poetry as Consciousness, which I find fascinating. He's got a new version of that book that's more in depth and more interesting to follow. We'll say Haiku Language Thought. And it should be a really deep, interesting discussion about the nature of haiku. He's also a psychology. I don't know if he has a degree. I think he's a PhD in depth psychology, if I remember right. And so he's really interesting perspective. And haiku as like the basic unit of what all poems do on like a psychological, spiritual level is what he's talking about in this really interesting book. That's sort of his life's work. That's Haiku Thought or Haiku Language Thought. That's Richard Gilbert. Next week's guest in the Rattlecast, number 319, Monday, November 24th, the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week in the meantime, and we'll talk to you. Oh, wait, before I go, I should say we are not going to be here on Friday for the critique of the week. I'm going to do it Saturday, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because we are going to be home Saturday, so
Later on
later,
Saturday.
yeah.
Oh,
mhm.
okay.
So we'll just
Okay.
do it Saturday, not to miss a week. And for all those people who are like at work, you can
Yeah,
participate for
okay,
once
great,
during
yeah.
a special Saturday critique of the week. That is going to be this Saturday, and then we'll do Richard Gilbert on Monday, November 24th, at the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week in the meantime. We'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.